Hamilton is about to drive a completely different Ferrari, and the data just leaked. After setting one of the fastest laps of Bahrain testing, Ferrari didn't slow down. They panicked, because behind that insane pace was a thermal collapse that cost them 0.3 per lap and nearly shut the car down. So now, for week 2, Ferrari is bringing a full emergency upgrade package. New side pods, new floor, new aero balance system, new energy deployment maps. This is not fine-tuning. This is a structural redesign before the season even starts. If it works, the SF-26 could go from the fastest fragile car to the most complete machine on the grid. If it fails, Ferrari may have sacrificed raw speed and still not fixed the real problem. And Hamilton is at the center of it, because this upgrade is built around his feedback. Stay with me, because what Ferrari is about to test in Bahrain could decide whether they fight for the title or fight just to survive race 1. Here's why this upgrade is so extreme. Week 1 proved something very uncomfortable for Ferrari. The SF-26 is incredibly fast, but it is incredibly fragile. On low fuel, the car looked like a pole position machine. The mid-corner speed was outstanding. The traction out of slow corners was aggressive and confident. But once temperatures climbed, the weakness appeared. The thermal shutdown on day 3 was not random. It exposed that the ultra-tight size zero packaging was suffocating key power unit components. That is why Ferrari did not choose evolution. They chose intervention. Upgrade number 1 is the new side pod specification. Version 1.5. Slightly wider through the Coke bottle area, with modular cooling panels that can be opened without destroying airflow to the rear of the car. In week 1, emergency cooling solutions cost roughly 0.3 per lap because they disrupted the beam wing flow. 0.3 is massive, so this redesign is not about adding cooling. It is about adding cooling without losing performance. If that works, Ferrari regains stability without sacrificing speed. But Hamilton pushed for something even more important: rear stability. The original V-shaped diffuser produced enormous peak downforce, but stalled when ride height changed under braking or crosswind. When stalled, rear grip vanished. And that unpredictability is exactly what Hamilton refuses to tolerate. So Ferrari is bringing a new anti-stall floor. Stiffer edges. A redesigned diffuser opening to keep airflow attached during oscillation. This may slightly reduce maximum downforce, but it widens the operating window. And widening the window is how you win championships. Because raw peak load means nothing if you cannot access it consistently. Then comes the aerodynamic synchronization. There were moments in week 1 where the active rear wing closed faster than the front aero system reacted. That created imbalance under braking. So Ferrari is adjusting both flap geometry and software calibration to synchronize front and rear transitions perfectly. That sounds subtle. Is not. When aero platforms are misaligned by milliseconds, drivers lose confidence instantly. And confidence equals lap time. Finally, the engine mapping. Ferrari is rewriting energy deployment logic to smooth torque delivery. The goal is simple: protect the rear tires, reduce snap oversteer on exit, and stretch electrical deployment further down the straight, even if that means sacrificing a bit of peak punch, because brutal torque looks impressive, but smooth torque wins races. Now imagine all of this together: more stable rear, more efficient cooling, more predictable aero balance, smoother energy delivery. If this package works, Hamilton may finally have a Ferrari that suits his driving style. And if that happens, the SF-26 stops being a glass cannon. It becomes something far more dangerous, fast, stable, repeatable. Week 1 showed us potential. Week 2 will reveal whether Ferrari just fixed its weaknesses or exposed new ones. Because in Formula 1, every solution creates a new question, and Hamilton is about to answer all of them on track. Now here is the part that makes this even more dramatic. Because this upgrade is not just about fixing problems. It is about redefining Ferrari's identity before the season even begins. If the new side pods control temperature without adding drag, Ferrari keeps its straight line efficiency. If the anti-stall floor stabilizes the rear, Hamilton gains braking confidence. If the aero synchronization works, the car becomes predictable instead of nervous. And if the new energy maps smooth torque delivery, rear tire degradation drops significantly. Each element alone is important. Together, they transform the entire behavior of the SF-26. But here is the risk. Every time you widen the operating window, you risk losing peak performance. The original floor generated massive downforce when perfectly balanced. If the revised version sacrifices even a small percentage of that peak load, qualifying pace could suffer. And Ferrari's Week 1 advantage came from raw one-lap performance. So the question becomes uncomfortable. Are they trading ultimate speed for stability? Or are they unlocking speed they could not previously use consistently? That is what Week 2 will answer. Because now the car is no longer being tested in ideal conditions. It will be pushed through full race simulations, long fuel stints, high ambient temperatures, brake phase oscillations, crosswind shifts. If the rear stays planted under braking, Hamilton's lap consistency will increase. If cooling remains under control, power unit modes can stay aggressive longer. If energy deployment stretches further down the straight, overtaking potential improves. And suddenly the SF-26 stops looking like a fragile prototype. It starts looking like a championship weapon. But there is another layer. Psychology. If Hamilton feels the car responding to his feedback, confidence grows instantly. And when Hamilton feels confident in the rear of the car, his braking becomes later. His inputs become sharper. His consistency becomes relentless. That psychological shift alone can be worth tenths. At the same time, Leclerc must adapt to the new balance. Because the car in Week 2 may not behave exactly like the one that delivered that insane Bahrain lap. If the peak edge is softened, Leclerc may need to adjust his aggressive rotation style. So this is not just a technical evolution. It is a philosophical one. Ferrari is choosing drivability over extremity, consistency over volatility, sustainability over headline pace. And that decision tells you everything about their ambition. They are not chasing a testing trophy. They are chasing a championship. But championships are not won in theory. They are proven in heat, in long runs, in pressure. So when the second week of testing begins, every lap Hamilton completes will be under scrutiny. Is the rear stable under braking? Is the cooling controlled? Is the power delivery smooth? Because if all three answers are yes, the SF-26 is no longer just impressive. Is dangerous. Week 1 showed us how fast Ferrari can be. Week 2 will show us how complete they can become. And if this upgrade delivers what it promises, the entire grid may realize that Ferrari did not just fix a problem. They may have unlocked something much bigger. But there is one more layer that makes this moment even bigger. Timing. Ferrari did not plan to introduce this scale of upgrades so early. This was accelerated, forced, triggered by what they discovered under real Bahrain heat. And when a team compresses development timelines like this, two things can happen. Either the solution is brilliant, or it exposes something deeper. Because integrating a new floor, new bodywork, new aero calibration, and new software simultaneously is complex. Everything interacts. Cooling changes airflow. Airflow changes rear load. Rear load changes tire temperature. Tire temperature changes degradation. Energy mapping changes torque curves. Torque curves change rear stability. Is a chain reaction. If one piece does not align, the entire system becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability is what Ferrari is trying to eliminate. Now imagine Hamilton's first long run in Week 2. Full fuel, afternoon heat, heavy braking zones, crosswind through Sector 2. If the rear remains planted, if the temperature readings stay within target, if the energy deployment feels smooth instead of aggressive, that run will send a message through the paddock. Ferrari has solved it. But if mid-run the engineers start calling for lift and coast, if rear instability reappears under braking, if cooling vents need to be opened wider than expected, then the story changes again. Because that would mean the problem was not surface level. It was architectural. And architecture is not fixed overnight. There is also the championship dynamic to consider. Red Bull is still calm, still controlled, still rumored to be hiding pace. They do not need dramatic upgrades. They need refinement. McLaren looks balanced, predictable, consistent. Sometimes the team that avoids crisis wins in the long run. Ferrari, on the other hand, is choosing ambition. They are pushing the concept instead of retreating from it. And that choice carries risk, but also carries opportunity. Because if this package unlocks the full potential of the SF-26, Ferrari could combine three critical elements at once. Raw qualifying speed, improved tire management, stable race distance reliability. That combination is rare. And when it appears, championships follow. So Week 2 becomes more than testing. It becomes validation. Validation of Hamilton's influence. Validation of Ferrari's development direction. Validation of whether the insane Bahrain pace was just a flash or the beginning of something real. Because in Formula One, potential is easy to show for one lap. Sustainability is much harder. And this upgrade is Ferrari's attempt to turn potential into sustainability. If they succeed, the entire grid recalibrates their expectations. If they fail, Ferrari will face the season knowing they were close, but not complete. And that is why every single lap Hamilton drives in Week 2 will matter. Not just for testing, but for defining whether the SF-26 is a headline machine or a championship machine.